Hey, bright lights, welcome back to the Space Doctor series on the Architecting channel. If you are new here, my name is Angela. I am an architect, researcher, and feng shui practitioner who has spent my whole career studying the science of design for well-being, so you don't have to. I'm here to demystify this because I know from firsthand experience just how much the environment we are surrounded in really does impact us for better or worse. So if it's going to impact us, let's make it a good one. It is my mission to make this important work really easy to understand, fun, and accessible to everyone. And we do this using my Salutogenesis deck. So this contains all of this work, but it's in a series of cards that are organized in two parts: fundamental concepts, which are theories in psychology, sociology, anthropology, physiology, neurology, that really focus on what happens to us when we navigate the world in different ways. And then the other part of the deck are five aspects my research has indicated are a part of salutogenesis, or design for well-being. I've associated each of these aspects with one of the elements in feng shui so that as we talk about this, we're also talking about how to design to cultivate these aspects. So this sounds like something you are interested in. If you want to learn more, make sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode. Every single week is different because I never know what two cards I'm going to draw. And I am able to share a little bit more about a card as I talk about it with its companion card. So even if I've drawn a card in the past, you'll learn something very different in the way that I'm talking about it in an individual session. The card that I drew from the fundamental concepts part of the deck is resiliency. Now, resiliency is our ability to withstand and endure, to bounce back after encountering a setback. Resiliency is related to stress because when we are in stress, we are trying to survive. Makes sense, right? Resiliency is about flipping the script on that and moving into thriving, coming back better than before, learning from the experience. So the plant that you see growing in the crack in the sidewalk symbolizes joy, beauty, growth, sensitivity, opening up to receive the better things in life. Resiliency is the ultimate key to success. The crack is all about telling us that we have had the experience that signaled our need to rebuild and restore. So think about in your own life what things have become too heavy or too unmanageable. Cracks allow things to get in and out. So what are you letting in that might be toxic and causing problems for you that you could release now through the crack? What sorts of things might you be putting off handling in your life when you see a crack? Or maybe you focused too much of your energy on building something without paying enough attention to the foundation and whether that could support what you are trying to do. Now, the companion card that I drew with this from the aspects part of the deck is rest. Now, rest is part of relaxation response. Relaxation response, or I restore, is associated with the water element in feng shui. Water is healing, water is grounding, water is restorative. So it is a really great card to pair with resiliency And let's move into talking specifically about how relaxation response is reflected through the card of rest. To put it very simply, rest is how the body recovers. It is essentially the restoration mechanism. When we rest, we are resetting. As we know from many scientific papers that are studying sleep, when we sleep, our brain resets itself. Our dreams allow us to process our day, whether or not we remember them. Our body works to heal itself. So, rest is very much tied with the parasympathetic nervous system. So, if you didn't know, our autonomic nervous system, which is called that because we don't always control how it regulates itself, has two parts. It has the sympathetic, which is the survival mechanism, the part that is tuned to our environment, that is vigilant, that is protecting and keeping us safe. That's what gets triggered when we experience a stress response. And the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, parasympathetic is about healing, it is about being in a state of calm, relaxation, and restoration, kind of the root of the word rest. So, we want to be in that parasympathetic state as much as we can because when we are in it, when we're resting, our body can process, it can heal, it can recover. Rest replenishes our energy, it improves our focus, it enhances our emotional regulation. And all of that contributes to us having a much stronger ability to cope with adversity. So you can see that connection between rest and resilience. So rest supports us not just physically, but mentally. Stress and lack of rest are very much tied to amplifying mental health issues or even creating them. Stress and lack of rest are tied to our emotions getting out of control or becoming less positive and more negative. So when we rest, we're regulating our emotions. And rest also helps to restore our spirit. It helps us to feel more empowered, more clear, helps us realign with our true passions and have the energy and wherewithal to want to pursue them. Rest also helps us to strengthen our social connections because it makes us more present, more engaged, and that really lets us have higher quality interactions with everyone that we encounter in our daily life, from the barista at the coffee shop to a good friend or a loved family member. And the card has a lot of symbols baked into this. And I have to say, I really have enjoyed creating this deck and feeling into the meaning of the different issues and research that I'm representing in a card. But as I've developed the cards, I really just did what instinctively felt right. Then I started to look up the symbolism of the images that I'd chosen. And wow, like I cannot believe how things that I was just instinctively drawn to have a much deeper symbolic meaning that are incredibly tied to exactly what I was trying to express in these cards. So it just makes me feel even better that this is something that I know I've been guided to do and something that the world really needs. So let's start with the pool of water that we see the woman floating in. It represents creative growth, rejuvenation. Floating represents freedom, transcending limitations, liberation, and a spiritual connection, as well as the shift in perspective we need to have to get new insights. And of course, when we're well rested, we are much more open to that. The umbrella that you see off to the side there represents unity, protection, shelter, authority, dignity. So, really, that ability to reclaim what you need through rest in order to thrive. So, that is our tie back to resiliency. That's the part of rest that deals with that. And then the flagstones represent permanent grounding connection to the earth. Flagstones are actually commonly used in memorial stones, especially in Europe. And so there's also a tie back to ritual and remembrance and the ability to process, which is another part of rest. The little red book that's on her towel symbolizes knowledge, learning, memory, the power of words. So, again, when we reset, when we rest, we are processing, we are gaining wisdom then from the experience that we're resting from. And I want to really emphasize a lot of times when we talk about rest, we think, oh, I just need more sleep or I need to take a nap. But that is not the only way to rest. So, one of my favorite authors and speakers is a woman named Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith, and she has a book that talks about the 7 forms of rest. Highly recommended. It is called Sacred Rest. But according to her, these forms of rest, yes, they can be physical. So you could take a nap, you could get a better night's sleep, you can just sit down and do nothing. But there's also mental rest, giving your mind a break, not having those spinning thoughts. Spiritual rest, which is about reconnecting with things that have deep meaning for you, prayer, meditation, emotional rest, remembering to take a time out, take a break when you have been doing something that is draining or dealing with difficult people or doing something that required you to overcome a lot of fear or anxiety. Give yourself a break from that. Sensory rest. So, how can we surround our senses with beauty so that we can relax instead of being overstimulated? Social rest, again, social connection is such an important part of our well being. Are you taking the time to stay connected to other humans in a positive and meaningful way? And finally, creative rest. When we are doing something we love, that is a creative activity, and it doesn't just have to be something related to fine arts. Creative rest could be sewing, creative rest could be woodworking, hobbies, anything like that. We get into what's called flow state. And in flow state, that parasympathetic nervous system takes over and it is an incredibly restorative experience. So make sure that you are taking time to experience all 7 of those forms of rest. From a feng shui point of view, we want to think about what we can do to have placement where we feel protected, like we are in that command position. Hard to get rest if you don't feel safe in your environment. Want to minimize clutter. Clutter creates chaos in the mind. Clutter often contains things like unfinished projects or things that need to be repaired or fixed. So even if you're not consciously aware of it, they're agitating you, focusing on what you need to do when you're trying to rest and reset. Want to avoid sharp edges. That's another cue to our nervous system of danger. We want to have soft forms. Monochromatic colors are the most calming. So, in an environment where we want rest, we want to use monochromatic colors, smaller patterns. Think about soothing sounds, even using a white noise machine or having a fountain or being able to listen to things like the birds singing outside, soft lighting and cool colors. So much like the color scheme that represents the relaxation response, that kind of teal color, those cooler tones tend to help with relaxing. Now, color alone, I will say, and if you go back and listen to some of the episodes where I've drawn the card for color, which is actually in the biophilia aspect, you'll know that it's not always about hue, that it is more about the type of color. And you can learn more about that in that particular episode. But we want to also make sure that we feel good in the space. We rest when we have comfort and ease. So, really think about what promotes comfort and ease for you and set up the space where you want to rest. So, think about your bedroom, but certainly other rooms in your home or even in your workplace. Is there somewhere you could go that's a quiet room? And how could you suggest that room be set up to promote rest and that restorative activity? Putting these cards together, rest is what helps strengthen our resiliency. So, the more busy you are, the more stressed out you feel, the more you ironically feel that you can't take time for rest. That is when you need it the most. If you keep going, like you see on that resiliency card, something's gonna give, something's gonna crack. So let's not wait for things to reach that crisis point. Let's leverage the power of rest, build our resiliency, and then the experiences of everyday life that we can't control, the ups or downs, will feel a lot more even and less extreme to us because we have higher resiliency. So, if you learned something from this, if you are enjoying what you're hearing, make sure you like and subscribe so that you can keep on learning with me. I love hearing from all of you about this material. My friend Dee tells me all the time, I'm so amazed at how you take this really complex stuff because she researches this too. And you make it so simple and so easy. And that is really what I'm trying to do. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and I will see you next time.